Thank you. London. All right. Joe? Okay, just give us the thumbs up when you're good. Yeah. Morning, Claire.
It's on the iPad, Joe.
Okay. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Service Delivery Committee today on this beautiful sunny day without any rain. Thank God for that. Today we have an apology from Andrew, whose schedule coming back from Canada has been disrupted. And so can I have a mover and second that his apology be accepted? Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Marcus. All those in favour say aye. Against, carried. Most of us are here today, the ones that we have Roger and Hazel on Zoom. Welcome, guys. Good to see you.
Thank you. My apologies for not being there. I just woke up this morning with a few symptoms.
Yeah.
I've tested. I'm not positive, so that's great. But I think it just may be the flu. So I decided not to come and infect all you lot.
That's we're very, very grateful for that. You've taken the best track, I think. Thank you, Roger. Tab 2, disclosure of members' interests. Are there any interests that people need to disclose in the agenda, please? No. Are there any late items that anybody bring up? No, thank you. The confirmation of the order of the meeting. We don't have any change in the order of the meeting, Dawn. So move in a second, please. Thank you, Lou. Thank you, Claire. All those in favour say aye. Against,
Aye.
carried. Tab 5 is a confirmation of the minutes. Get back, Graham. On the 20, where are we? Yeah, hang on. Thank you. Went over too many. On the 17th of May, Tuesday, 17th of May. So we'll go page 1, page 2, page 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. A mover and a seconder, please, that they be a true record. Thank you, Claire. Thank you, Bruce. All those in favour say aye. Thank
Aye.
you. Tab 6 are the contract signed under delegation. Dawn, looks pretty straightforward to me. Do you want to make any comment?
No, thank you, Chair. No further comment unless there are any questions arising out of any of those contracts.
Any questions here? Pretty mundane stuff. Okay. Recommendation, the information of the monthly schedule of contract signed and delegated authority be received. Thank you, Marcus. Thank you, Lou. All those in favour say aye. Against,
Aye.
carried. Tab 7 is the Waters Activity Report. And we have Martin here. This is going to be quite a Martin show today. So, yeah. Martin, we may have to bring morning tea to you and make sure you're well looked after. Now, welcome, Martin. It's always good to hear your reports. I enjoy reading them. Thank you. Floor's yours.
Yep. Good morning, Chair and councillors. I'll take the report as read and just talk you through a few key points. So of particular note, the Water Supply Board consultation closed on the 13th of June. And so they'll follow up with a council report and a decision once we've, I think there was 3 submissions I'm aware of. So we'll work through those.
Thank you.
So the Ministry of Health is progressing plans for community fluoridation, and I'll come back to that a bit later on in the report.
Yeah, thank you.
We've been issued a formal warning from the Regional Council following a non-compliant discharge from the backwash pond at the Titahi water treatment plant, and our report is attached for further reading. I think the only thing that highlights is normal. Historically, that would have been a discussion with the Regional Council. It was a minor issue, but it just shows they're now moving to a more formal position, and so we got a formal warning for that. The Waikato Regional Council Plan Change 1 is moving into a mediation, and I'll come back to that again a bit later on.
Thank you.
On section 3.11, the National Performance Review, there was a question when we presented that last time, and we said we'd give a verbal update. We're still working through those finances to confirm that, so that'll have to be on hold until we've got those details sorted. Water Safety Plans 3.13, so they're well progressed, and we're planning a workshop probably in August to present those to council. So 3.14 resource consent compliance. So we've got an annual report from the Regional Council on performance. And as you can see from the table over the page, it was quite a very good report. It was a good year from a compliance perspective. Next is on item 4.4. There was a non-compliance with protozoa at Karapiro water treatment plant in May. This was due to incorrect programming from a sand filter which didn't go offline when it reached high turbidity. So we've fixed that issue since then. Again, but yeah, disappointing to have that. Next item is 5.3, which is community fluoridation. So as we're all aware, in November last year, the responsibility for deciding if we fluoridated our water passed to the Ministry of Health. Since then, they've contacted us in December to seek information on the status and preparedness of councils with regard to community fluoridation. The request included estimated cost and timelines to install fluoride dosing capability. So staff informed the Ministry of Health that WIPO has no plans or funding to introduce community fluoridation in the current long-term plan, and an estimated capital cost of $400,000 per water supply would be required. The Director General of Health has the delegation to direct water suppliers to fluoridate the community supplies.
Martin, Liz has got a question there, just a moment. Thanks, Liz.
Thank you, Martin. Obviously, fluoridation is something that's been very topical in our communities for some years, and seeing this in our agenda, I guess, raised my hackles a little bit, because I really do want to see some community consultation around this. So I'd really like to invite the Ministry to come and talk to us. I want to see the consultation with the communities and understand why Cambridge has been chosen, and just understand a little bit more about what their plans are. So is that a possibility?
We can ask. Yep. Yeah.
It's flowing, shouldn't use that term, flowing on from that, Mr. Chair. And I think in that request for them to come and talk to us, we need some details, I suppose, on why. And I think Councillor Stolwick touched on it, is why, if you like, identify Cambridge as needing fluoridation, opposed to, in our case, Te Awamutu, for argument's sake, and what the evidence is for requiring fluoridation in Cambridge. I fully understand that it's to prevent tooth decay or assist in prevention of tooth decay. But is it necessary for Cambridge? Have we got a high level of tooth decay in Cambridge, for argument's sake, that needs fluoridation? Because there is significant cost here. Don't want to blow it out of the water, but in terms of us looking at it, as Liz has pointed out, we need to know what the justification is for it. As I say, I understand the medical reasons, and in some localities, particularly in the low socioeconomic areas where there's a lot of tooth decay, I would suggest through drinking sugary drinks and things like that rather than anything else. But have we got a problem in Cambridge that needs addressing? And I think that's the issue that the community need to know about.
Luke, thank you.
I'm online. I'm very supportive of what both Liz and Mayor James have stated. And the big thing is I think we need some consultation and some knowledge of why. But the big question I have is $400,000 here. Are we going to be funded, or are we going to have to fund up with that and stump up with this? Because this is not in our annual plan, and it has to be considered in that as a direct cost to us. And we're living in quite difficult financial times, struggling to keep within our rates burdens. And I feel that that needs to be discussed. And we need to discuss this with the people that are implementing this. Thank you.
Martin, can I just ask a question from the chair? Is it normal practice for them to sort of dump a letter on our back door and say, this is what we're looking at doing? Is that the normal way? Was there any heads up that this may be coming from the Ministry of Health or anybody else?
I think there's been a heads up from the Ministry of Health in February. I think they came out and said they are then now be ready to start implementing fluoridation across New Zealand, and that's when they came out and saw that from all councils that their preparedness and readiness and estimated costs. Again, then they did follow that up. The first letter with the second one more specifically around confirming the costs and timelines for Cambridge. So that indicates that that's where their thinking is. I've got no idea if they're going to come back and say, yes, it is Cambridge, but they certainly only asked for further information on Cambridge.
Yeah.
They have indicated there is some funding available. How much or what that is, I don't know. Yeah. So currently we just responded to their requests, and certainly we'd get back to them and ask them to come and present more information.
Well, they certainly need to front up. You can't just have that going to the community without some consultation. So we're fully supportive. Liz, you had a supplementary?
Yeah, look, I was just going to say that, look, this is a government department, and for a long time we've had lots of signals that government want to engage with our communities. They want to they want meaningful consultation. Well, that's what we're asking for, meaningful consultation here, so that we can talk about what's going on in our communities and make sure that, that we're involved.
If this is the start of everything going to Wellington in the future, we're in a bit of trouble. Claire, sorry, and then Lou.
Yeah, and just another thing about the extra information was the alternatives that they've considered as well, and why the fluoridation is, probably the better option. Yeah, so just to know that they have considered alternatives.
So Claire, hopefully if they came to address us, we would find out a little bit more of the technicalities of that sort of stuff. Lou.
Just to add on to what I was saying about the $400,000, I'd also like to emphasise the fact annual operating costs of $130,000, and that would possibly be the implementation of more staff in this situation, or anyway, there is a cost here on an annual basis, so that's an OPEX.
That's to continue the dosing, to buy the fluoride to dose and the equipment you need for it, which doesn't last very long due to the nature of the chemical.
Michael.
Yeah, thanks to the chair. Look, hey, I agree with all the speakers so far. I think if there's a public meeting, these meetings tend to be pretty fiery, and it's easy for the public health folks to stand up there and present a one-sided argument, because you can never lose a one-sided argument if you're not going to hear the other side. So I'm just wondering how it really does work. But more importantly, I think we need to put some thought into, if this eventuates, who actually chairs this, because someone who actually can chair a meeting needs to, because I can just see this getting reasonably hostile, or reasonably emotionally charged, I should say. And it just needs someone who can actually control a room. So I'd hate to see that as just, that person will do, that we should probably put a bit of thought into that if this eventuates.
Roger, did you have your hand up?
Yes, I did.
Thank you.
To the chair. Thank you very much. Yes, I just agree with all of the previous speakers. I think from my experience within Cambridge, this is quite a divided issue in our community. And I think we should do all we can to ensure that whoever is making that decision from central government needs to come into the community and to undergo some real consultation before it's just automatically introduce carte blanche, which they seem to have a habit of doing currently.
Thank you, Roger.
Through
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Jeff.
through you,
Thank you.
Mr. Chair. Look, I think we've got to be really clear here that, and we cast their mind back. This was a decision that was taken out of council control to the ministry,
Yeah.
and certainly supported that, because there's no point in having the discussions up and down the country and running into huge costs on the merits or otherwise of fluoridation. So absolutely support the intent to have the ministry come in and consult with our community, but it should be, they're the ones who have got to make the decision. It should be led by the ministry, not by council. We're in a position to be able to make some comments, but I think taking Mike's comment on board, this is an issue that the ministry need to be dealing with, not council.
Thank you. Michael Gain.
Yeah, through the chair, I'm just going to comment on that, Jim. Yeah, I don't know if it's theoretical over practice, because if the community overwhelmingly don't want this, they are going to turn to the council to stand up, just like this council is doing for Three Waters. Three Waters is on the road to be mandated. We're part of a group that's fighting this. So just because, you know, this has come from the government doesn't mean a council can't stand up if the people that they represent overwhelmingly reject something. Now, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if they do, I think at that point we have to, you know, look at where we stand on this as a collective.
Thank you. Okay, carry on, Martin.
Move on to the next item.
5.4, please.
5.4.
Yep.
Yep, it's the Waikato Regional
change one.
Council Plan Change 1. So council submitted on the proposed Plan Change 1 along with many other entities, and the Environment Court of New Zealand has directed all parties to attend court-assisted mediation, and this has been scheduled for June the 29th. Some of the key points, and there's many points, but some of the key ones, the plan changes aiming for full achievement of Te Ture Whamana o Te Waio Waikato, but acknowledge it is needed that this will be intergenerational, and as such is proposed to change the short-term reduction target from 20% to 10%. YPRDC is looking for an amendment to Policy 12 to ensure offsetting and compensation only applies in relation to significant residual adverse effects. The point for determining any residual adverse effects that may need to be offset or compensated should be after reasonable mixing and staging of offsetting or compensation, and better water quality outcomes may be achieved downstream. An amendment is also sought for Policy 13 to delete the words may be acceptable as transitional measure during the life of this chapter. Now, I've just highlighted those ones because they're the ones that are most contentious with the regional council, so it'll be quite a, and I think there's about 18 parties in the mediation. So,
Clear.
Yeah, thanks, Martin. Just on that point about the short-term reduction target changing from 20% to 10%. Yeah, I was a bit surprised to see that. Do you know more about that? That's just a proposal, isn't it, at the moment? Or
so the Plan Change 1 seeks that there's a 20% reduction in the first 10 years on all contaminants going to the river, and so we're seeking a change. So that's 10% over those 10 years.
do you know why that's been sought?
Why the 20% has, or the 10?
Reduce it to the 10%. Yeah.
Because it's unaffordable and currently technically not achievable for us to get to that level of reduction.
Oh.
Yeah.
I think it's important that people do know that, because it's the technical stuff that makes the reality of what they're trying to push through workable.
Yeah.
If it's not technically possible, then they need to be reconsidering that.
So with our wastewater consent for Cambridge, which we're just going through the process of seeking for and spending $100 million on a new plant, if we then had to do 20% better after we got that, that's just not, in our opinion, not achievable with technology.
Yeah.
At the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although, I mean, I would imagine you'd use the existing plant as the comparison, not the new plant.
But it's a continuation of 20% reduction. So it's just not a one-off. It's that 20%. So whatever you've achieved, you'll need another 20% reduction over those 10 years.
Oh, for each part of the system, not just like the worst ones getting bigger reductions.
Yeah. So it's a continuous. Yeah. So we're just trying to reduce that to 10% to make it a bit more achievable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Activity management.
Yep, so the next item to talk about is 6.3. So that's in the project section. So that's just the Department of Internal Affairs stimulus funding that we received the $6.8 million just over a year ago as part of the water reform funding. So it's just to highlight we've managed to complete all of the 12 projects that were funded from that money on time and on budget.
Fantastic.
So
Yeah.
it was a very good
Thank you,
outcome.
Luke.
Just a quick one, with the sand and grit going into your filters, is there any solution to this, or long-term, short-term?
Yep, so there's a long-term solution which is installing hydrocyclones at the Pukerimu intake, and we're just currently getting costs for that and hope to have that installed in the next 3 months, provided once we've got the cost in.
Thank you very much. It's been an ongoing issue, so just
It
interested
has,
to see
yeah,
what it was.
yeah.
Phil, you got a question?
Yep, thank you through the chair. Thanks, Martin. Just on to 6.1 asset planning, first bullet point. Yep, with regards to the new bladder and more consistent level to service Cambridge North and St Kilda. That's nothing to do with the Oaks, the water pressure in the Oaks or
No.
anything like that.
No,
That's not related.
again, so that's an internal
Yeah.
issue. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Mark, I'm just wondering, with the sand and grit for the new water treatment plant, is this something that should have been picked up when it was initially built as a project, the water quality and stuff in the sand and grit there? Like, why is?
Yes, yeah. So when we let the contractor design and build, and we gave the contractor a list of the contaminants from the river, which didn't include sand and grit. And so in their tender, they excluded, if there was a sand and grit issue, then they weren't responsible. So they designed the plant to run. And the issue is the sand. We've got pre-filters before the membranes, which are 50 micron, and the sand and the grit, or a portion of sand and the grit, is exactly the same size as the screen holes. And so they wedge themselves in there and block up the screen. So where the screen should only be cleaned, automatically cleaned every 30 minutes, and then manually inspected every 6 months, we have to take them to bits and wash them every day because the sand clogs. So yep, with hindsight, we should have picked that up and put sand and grit as a contaminant in the contract, but it's not the contractor's responsibility for that. So we need to find the solution, which is installing hydrocyclones, which are circa $455,000 cost, but there is still money in the project to pay for that. So,
Susan.
Just a quick question. Why was sand and grit not included at the time?
it wasn't seen to be an issue, a contaminant that's caused us a problem previously. And so with our traditional plant, which is a sand filter plant, the sand and grit goes into the sand that's already there and isn't a problem. But with membranes, obviously we don't want sand in the pores of the membranes because it's abrasive.
Okay.
But yeah, it was an oversight on our principles requirements not to include that.
Thank you.
But then if you'd included it, they would have still been doing this the same amount
Yes,
of money.
they'd have built the hydrocyclone,
Yeah.
but they'd have probably built the hydrocyclones in as when they were building the plant, and we wouldn't have been having to retrofit them then.
Yeah. Thanks, Martin. Well,
So that's all the points I've got. I'm happy to answer any other questions.
brilliant. Philip.
Thank you. Just a quick question on 6.4, the third bullet point, the rain gardens. 6 of the 12 are done. Completion is July. Is that, if you got, I think there's 2 more started already, so there's 4 or 5 more to 4 or 5 more to go.
Yeah, so probably a bit more progress from when this report was written
Right.
a few weeks ago. Yeah, so they're well on track for it to be completed in July.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're currently, the only caveat to that is we're currently struggling to source the correct plants that go in them of the right size and the right, they're just not available at the moment. So the planting may be an ongoing aspect.
Thank you.
Susan.
Yeah, thanks,
After you,
Mark.
hang on, Lou.
Yep, yes.
Just going back to the non-compliance of the Te Tahi water treatment plant. I sort of get the sense it's sort of skipped past this one a little bit, and I just want to have some assurances or get an understanding around whether there was any risk to the Te Awamutu water supply at the time in terms of that incident. And I kind of want some really clear assurances that there aren't going to be repeated incidences of this. And I appreciate the end of your report, you've set out what a couple of things that will be done into the future. And I guess with something as crucial as water supply, which I know you're aware of, we need some really clear assurances that stuff like this isn't going to happen again. And secondly, I'm a little bit concerned that this happened a month ago, and this is the first time I've heard about it. So I appreciate that there's been a change in terms of the way the reporting from Regional Council comes in, but I'd like to understand what your comments are in respect to those matters.
The issue was
Martin, could you put your microphone on?
Yeah, so the issue at Te Tahi was after the water treatment process. So it was the backwash pond. So the water we use to flush the sand filters, and that is backwash water, and that goes to a pond where we hold it in that pond and discharge it slowly into the stream. The issue was that that went in faster than allowed. So there was no risk to the water treatment process whatsoever. We're allowed to discharge so many litres per second, and we exceeded that for a short period of time. Whereas we're allowed in total for the day, we were allowed, I think it's exact numbers were 700 cubes a day we're allowed to discharge, and generally we only do 200. So we're well within the quantity we can discharge. It was just too much went through the pipe in a short time frame. So there was no risk to the water supply.
Lou?
Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Just quickly with flood mapping, I've been involved with Robin a little bit with a local building, and we've identified that we're not at risk. But I just see that we're talking about the stormwater pipes and how far advanced are we with that? Because in this situation, we've got a large car park area within Te Awamutu that will be 1.2 to 1.3 metres underwater if we do have a major event, and there's in a lot of shopping area in the main street that will be affected. Is this going to be resolved with piping or what?
So again, we're following the final of the flood hazard mapping and all that. We're now going through a prioritising of remedial works and which ones we can do and the funding and can't do, based on risk to property first, and whether we meet our levels of service or not. So if we meet our current level of service, then we'll concentrate on areas where we don't meet the level of service first. So we're still working through that prioritisation list.
Thank you for that.
Thanks all. There's a recommendation there that the report be received from Martin. Claire, happy to move. Second to Lou. All those in favour say aye. Against?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you.
And I'd just like to congratulate Martin on a fantastic report, actually.
It's good.
There's so
Thank you.
many things being achieved, and the performance, I think, is just outstanding.
Yeah.
So yeah, congratulations to you and your staff.
Thank you.
Martin, the other thing that when I read it, I was impressed with that the alarm went off. Somebody said, hey, there's something, and they shot up there and actually dealt to it. And I think that means that you've got a commitment from staff and council to actually get up there in the first instance. Somebody could have sat down and said, oh yeah, but it'll be all right in the morning or whatever, but they didn't do that.
No, I've certainly got a team that care.
Yeah, really appreciated. Thank you. Cool. Tab 8 is the Sainsbury Road Reserve Management Plan Review. Yep, Amanda. I'd like to welcome Amanda and Hannah. Good to see you guys. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Hannah Divehall. I'm the Reserves Planning Team Leader, and I wanted to introduce you today to Amanda Banks, who is a consultant at Lightning Rod Consultancy. Community Services has engaged Amanda to reinitiate the 205 Sainsbury Road Reserve Management Plan process on our behalf. Amanda will go through the key points from her report, and we're more than happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here.
I'm quite delighted to be progressing this work. I understand that it's been waiting in the wings for a good few years now, so really pleased to be able to come to you this morning and say we're kicking things off again, and we've got a great game plan, and really looking forward to working with staff on this. I guess just one of the key points, two really. One, that the engagement that was done those few years ago gave a really clear direction from the community on what they wanted to see. They were keen to see the reserve being revegetated mostly in native plants and native vegetation. And secondly, that we've structured the timeframe so that the new council, whoever that may be, will be approving the draft reserve management plan to go out to community consultation, so that there's a really sort of clear steer from elected members as to what they want to proceed and take to the public. So happy to take questions.
Great. Amanda, how far back did it go? I remember I was a commissioner on the regulatory committee when we first got interested in that. Quite a legal battle up there with it. An old house and what have you.
Oh, yeah.
With a dirt floor.
Yeah, yeah. So in terms of the engagement on the reserve management plan, it happened in 2015-16. I understand that the house that was up there, there was those issues, and that was demolished. And I can't remember from the date. I think was it 2015.
Doesn't matter. It was a while ago.
Yeah, it's in the report though when that was demolished.
Yeah, thank you. Jim, will you ask a question?
Yeah, a question or a comment, I suppose. And look, great to be back on track with this. And I just wonder in terms of the process, whether we can include some comments about the benefits, I suppose, from a carbon reduction perspective, and just highlight that as an issue, because if we're trying to get net zero carbon for the organisation, this appears to me to be a worthwhile project that could actually assist council in heading in that direction. So some comment in there about, in fact, what this will actually do from a council perspective in terms of in improving our carbon footprint. Yeah.
For you, Graham.
Yeah, thank you, Claire.
I'm really excited to see this on our agenda. I'm sure the community will be thrilled to see it progress, because I know that the reserve is well used, and I do get comments regularly about they'd like to see council progressing it and getting those plants and stuff.
And Claire, you as the local councillor, you've taken an amazing interest in this, so you'll be pleased to see it progress in your patch as well. Liz.
Thank you, Graham. Yeah, look, I was also really pleased to see this. I recall back in the when we were doing the long-term plan, where we had a session, Claire was there as well, at the Parongia 5 Stags, I think it is, where we had a large volume of residents come and talk to us, particularly from the Parongia horse riding group, because this is a really dearly loved reserve. But not only that, we've also got a huge volume of bikers that come from all over the, I guess, the district to utilise. It's actually seen as one of the better mountain biking venues in the Waikato. In fact, many a broken bone, I'm sure, broken up there. So I just kind of want to make sure that people around this room to see the importance of that reserve and how special it actually is, and the great interest that actually that is there to see this to see a plan in place, and for us to actually potentially hopefully support this in the future as well. We haven't probably given it to I think the justice it probably deserves. So Claire, you're an excellent representative. I know you'll do a fantastic job, so thank you.
Any other questions? So if I go back, we do have A, B and C. And could I just ask whether we could just, Claire, with your permission, would you like to be the... it's your baby. I feel it's wonderful you go on there. If we could just put a little addition into C that appoints Claire St. Pierre of the Service Delivery Committee. Is that appropriate? Moved Lou, seconded Mike. Or did you got a question, Mike? Okay, thank you. Okay.
Yeah, just a question around Mana Whenua and their support for option A, but just asking for some more native forestation in there. So how does that work in terms of A, B and C? I've sort of lost my way now, but yeah, so is it going to be adapted? So obviously these are concepts that can be adapted, that'll be taken into account.
Yeah, so the three options that went out, which have got those percentages of native versus Indigenous cover and versus open space, that came, like I said, the community consultation came back quite clearly that there was strong support for natives. And the feedback was also made by Pūriki Marae that they were keen not to see any further exotic forestry. So we're sort of at the point where those sorts of comments will be taken into, you know, shaping up the reserve management plan factored in. And so it's likely that there'll be some tweaking to that landscape concept plan as well to take that into account. Yeah.
Well, agree with that. All right, it's been moved by Lou and seconded by Mike, and we've got the addition of Claire in there as our representative. A, B and C, I'll put it. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Thanks so much, ladies. Wonderful progress. Good, good, good. Tab 9, please, is the district-wide fire flow issues. Welcome again to Martin and Robin going up there for company. Morning, Rob.
Good morning again. Just brought Robin up with me as for this report and the next one. Yeah. Okay, so this is the district-wide fire flow issues reports. The report is to, let's say, take the report as read and just to highlight a few areas. So since we've completed the master plan modelling, it was indicated then that there were issues with fire flows and that we needed to do further modelling to further understand them. So that's what we've undertaken and completed. So it's quite a complicated, the code for compliance. You can either do modelling to determine the level of compliance for fire hydrants, or you can do manual hydrant testing. And for several years, or many years, we haven't done the manual testing. So therefore we needed to do the modelling to show that. I think that a good outcome, if you like, is although the modelling shows quite a large area of issues, particularly in Tiamutu, the manual testing we've done on those areas that the model shows didn't meet. Almost 90% of those have passed the manual test. So that although the modeling's given us a very good indication, there is some comfort that the manual testing has shown that those areas are 90% compliant. So although it looks quite bad, I've got some comfort that the actual testing shows them not to be as bad. So if we just go to the background again, I think one of the comments where we say we've received little feedback from the fire service in regard to fire hydrant performance. So we haven't had any feedback from them to say they've got concerns that the pressure's low or anything, but equally we haven't had a very good relationship with them. So certainly one of the things the report has highlighted is a need for a better relationship. So we've sent a copy of this report to FENZ, and we'll seek to have regular meetings with them so we can have more of a two-way communication, so they're more informed of where we think we've got issues, so they can be better prepared if they need to be.
Yeah.
So Tiamutu, Fire Brigade and Cambridge, but they come under one auspice of FENZ and the rep to them. Yeah.
Martin, I think we've councillors in Cambridge particularly, we've always been involved quite strongly with the brigade, and I've never ever had any of the brigade people come and say the water pressure is inadequate. But of course they always had the big water tanker available to back up if they need it. But that's just my take, just socially meeting them socially and going to to different functions there?
Yeah, and that's our. We've never had any feedback that there's been any issues. I think there was one when during the plan change submissions, there was one comment that they'd had an issue in St Kilda once, was the only anecdotal one that we've got.
So Martin, just going through this, and it makes mention of the times of the day for doing some modelling, and there seems to be quite a variation in whether it's, you know, taken during peak time or off peak time. Do they come back and redo those in different times of the day?
No, so for the code is quite got quite strong parameters. If you use a model,
yeah,
it's got quite strong parameters on how you do that model.
Okay.
And you have to do that model assuming 60% demand and those things. Whereas when you do the manual testing, there's no requirement of when all that 60% demand. Okay. It's just to set a level for the model, so you don't use a no demand scenario. So they do quite strict on, if you're using a model to show, then you need that 60% demand. But if you're doing the manual testing, it's not a factor.
Oh wow. Okay.
So we'll ongoing, the requirement in the code for manual testing is you identify key hydrants and you test them annually, and the rest of your hydrants you test on over a 5-year period.
Okay.
So we'll be moving into that manual.
Okay. Lou first, then you, Phil. Lou?
Thank you, through Chair. Just quickly, Sue Martin, I just wanted to know whether we think it said the southern area and parts of Gigi, is this a pipe issue or is this an actual volume issue or just something?
Yep. So it's not so we've got plenty of capacity in water supply, and we've got plenty of capacity and pressure and flow in our bulk networks. It's when we get down into the local areas where there's, you know, where the pipes are smaller, so there's restrictions in the amount of flow and pressure you can get through. So it is a more localized, the solutions are more localized than there's some bulk solutions we can try to improve that, but it gets down to the size of the pipes and the interconnection or non-interconnection of the network in those areas, particularly the high areas of the team meeting.
Which is why I'm asking this, is it exacerbated by the actual growth that we're having in that area? We've had a large number of houses built in that area over a period of time.
So growth, it's not related to growth where there's a new growth cells installed, because we install the bulk network for those, and that bulk network is modelled so it doesn't have an impact on existing network. It doesn't help the issue, but it doesn't compound the issue from a new growth cell. Infill obviously has some impact on demand, but again, it doesn't overly impact what that fire flow should be. It's not deteriorating it any more than it is.
Thank you very much.
Phil, then Roger.
Thank you, Martin, Robin. Just a comment, really. It's mentioned in here, St Kilda's is mentioned in here quite a bit. Just sort of would have thought with a new development that it would be pretty much it will be up to standard.
Yeah, so that was interesting. So I've done a bit more work since the report on St Kilda. And St Kilda was designed for all the properties to have water tanks in their properties to collect the roof water, and that's connected then internally back into their plumbing to service their outside taps and their water facilities to flush their toilets. And so the network was which put less demand on the network. So therefore the pipes were sized smaller because of the demand from each house was less than a normal development. So that may contribute to why there's an issue with their fire flows. But there's the solution is that we'll be able to put a fire flow pump in at the new pumping station as we prepare to build the new reservoir, which will alleviate that issue. Yeah.
Thank you. Hey, Roger.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think mine was very similar to the comments from Philip there, that it just seemed that the frequency of the red dots on the map, St Kilda, Auckland's and Milton Cowley, which seemed to be the more recent subdivisions. So I presume that, again, that the reason behind that is your comments that you just made, Martin.
Yeah, yes, indeed, and certainly. So the Cowley Drive area is limited size pipework going in there from when it was built, And certainly the Oaklands one is a challenge for us. We've really done some work there to try and identify why that's an issue, and we're not quite. All the pipes seem to be the right size, so it's we're still working on that. But the manually testing of those, they have passed. So,
Oh, that's good. Good. Thank you.
Claire, and then Jim.
Thanks, Martin and Robin. I'd like to ask about Pirongia, because I see that I can appreciate, you know, there are a lot of red dots there, but there's also parts of the village that don't have any fire hydrants at all. And I noticed that there's parts of Tuamutu as well. Like, is that something that the fire force manages? They're not too concerned if there isn't a complete network of fire hydrants? Or does it mean that you know, those parts of like Pirongia village, they might actually have a greater risk if there was a fire?
So fire hydrants are installed on urban networks where there's on-demand water supply, and so those areas of Pirongia that don't have the hydrants, were those ones that would be on trickle feed, would be my first response to that.
Yeah, well, I live on Crozier Street, which is one of those. It's probably that first horizontal blue line going to the west that that doesn't have any hydrants, and so I'm not on trickle feed. Yeah, and so and I do know that I've had comments from some of the fire force people that, you know, there is a lack of fire hydrants, and I think I raised it actually in one of the LTP things, but discussions that we had. But I mean, I don't think the fire force are particularly concerned. Like someone mentioned, you know, if you've got a water truck that seems to deal with the risk. But I just noticed that that's all. And if you're going to be having ongoing discussions, with FENS people, and
we'll certainly look into why there's no hydrants in those areas of Pirongia. They're installed when the network's built. And so there would have been some reason why when that network was built, there was no hydrants installed, but we'll certainly look into that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Jim, did you?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just a question, just for clarification, and I think I've got it right. This is a code, but it's not mandatory. Is my understanding correct there? Is it something that we can choose or not to comply with? Is that a fair understanding?
Yep, it's a voluntary code of practice. It's not a mandated code that we have to comply with, and also we've got no level of service agreed with us of what level of compliance is. Is it 100%, 80%? So it's something we'll work through is to try and understand what we aim to meet it, and because that's doing best practice, but there's no requirement of us to comply with it.
So the comment, I suppose, the critical issue is to make sure that we've got enough water in the supply to cope with a normal house fire or something of that nature. And that predominantly was the reason for having firefighting capability in the network, was for residential protection, not commercial or industrial protection, although obviously if we can provide that. But a lot of the commercial and industrial development now have to, or we require them to put in their own booster pumps, etc.
Yep. So we our level of service is to try and meet fire service level 2, which is residential firefighting supply, of which this code gives you an indication of what you should meet for that. We don't do, the next one up is FW3, which is for industrial and commercial. We don't offer that as a service, and so industrial and commercial properties need to provide their own firefighting water supply.
So I suppose the real crux of the questioning is, are we satisfied that although we haven't got technical compliance in some of our hydrants, that we have sufficient water to fight a fire should that occur?
I think that's, I mean, to some level we're comfortable with the manual testing we have, but we have also got quite a few improvements to do to make sure of that. So we've still got money in the LTP to fund improvements to improve the situation. So we do need to improve where we're at.
Yeah, so have we got a timeline to actually get that improvement?
So I think we've got for the next 2 years of the LTP, we've got significant investment on the firefighting improvements. So we're aiming to certainly improve the situation dramatically over the next couple of years. We'll probably never get to a place where every hydrant meets the code, because the return on investment probably wouldn't be valid. And if it's one hydrant but the other two near it meet the code, then there's,
yeah.
So that's our aim, is to reduce the number of red areas over the next couple of years.
Yeah, so I suppose I just want to be assured that we haven't got a situation where there's potentially a house fire and the fire services can't assist because there's no water in the mains effectively. We're comfortable that it's not going to be a risk to life, I suppose, with people in a residential property, because the fire services turn up and there's just no water in the pipes.
Yeah, so the risk is that we've highlighted is that we don't meet the code. There is always water in the network. But it may not be as adequate that what the fire brigade require to put a fire. There'll be water there to assist that. But the risk is that the models identify there are areas where we don't meet the code. But I say from manual testing, there is water there to put out a fire. So still, I don't want to downplay there's not a risk, but it's not a keep you awake at night risk.
Yeah, okay.
Martin, is there a formula that says you need so many hydrants per so many houses? And we're talking about the situation out of Parongia. If the council went out there and had a look and they decided, by hokey, we need some more hydrants, would we go ahead and put extra hydrants in to cater for that growth that's actually occurred?
Yes. So there is a code that requires how many you require every meters of a road in an urban environment.
Yeah.
So that'll be trying to determine when that was first installed. Was that designated urban, full urban requirements, or has that now changed and it is now fully urban? So we need to install hydrants. Yeah.
Yeah.
So certainly something. Yeah, we'll certainly look deeper into that.
I was just thinking at the stage where Parongia got going, there was probably a whole lot of empty sections at that stage, and so the fill-in is now demanding that extra hydrant. That was all.
Certainly look at that. Yeah.
Thank you. Is there any more questions? Because we have a resolution here to accept Martin's report. Thank you, Claire. Thank you, Phil. All those in favour say aye. Against, carried. Thank you very much. And tab 10 means that you guys stay seated, please.
Yeah, and Robin gets a turn.
Yeah, go for it, Rob. Sub-regional wastewater treatment plant, approval for business case memorandum of understanding. Got a bit of work gone into that.
So the report is associated with the sub-regional work we've been doing in the wastewater space, and specifically the Southern Detailed Business Case, which is the one that resulted in Cambridge being a standalone wastewater treatment plant and there being a Southern Hamilton wastewater treatment plant required. So that's how the detailed business case has landed. And the second, so basically seeking permission to accept that detailed business case with the sub-regional partners. And then the second thing is there's the memorandum of understanding between the major players, which talks about how we take that detailed business case forward. Those are the two key points of the report, just to enable us to accept the Southern business case and also the MOU.
Yeah.
Open to questions.
Clear.
I think just to
oh, sorry, Martin, do you want to just
it has been through quite a long tortuous process, and there has been a governance group of which the mayor and Liz were part of that, have endorsed the business case. So this is then happy for the mayor to speak upon it if he wants to. Or,
we got clear for the start. Yeah, thank you. It's clear.
I'm happy with what's proposed. Looks really good. I just have a few questions. So the first one, because it affects me personally, is the rural resident sector services. Yeah, so there's on page 74 of our agenda, or page 6 of the report, it talks that there might be a constraint with accepting septage, yeah, from various places around the district. I guess like there's a suggestion that Cambridge is probably the main point of I guess receiving the tankard septage, but that I have mentioned that it would be good if Te Awamutu could also receive it. But they did say that there might be constraints. So I just wanted to understand that a bit more, or make sure that you're going to look after us, I guess, as it goes forward. Yeah.
Yep. So we accept all domestic septic waste within the district at Cambridge wastewater treatment plant. So we've got no issue with domestic septic waste. The issue we've got is we get a lot of non-domestic waste, which we're slowly tightening that area up. So we only accept domestic waste, but we'll always accept domestic waste at Cambridge. And we're also looking at in the future, should we have a septic disposal facility at Te Awamutu to share that workload between the two treatment plants? It is quite a lot of load. Yeah, so but that'll probably be another next LTP or somebody else's responsibility. Yeah.
And then just a couple of other questions. On page 43 of the actual summary, it talks about the sub-regional approach, cost allocation, and that there was an analysis or a scenario done where all of the rates were harmonised across the northern and the southern metro areas. But it doesn't actually give the outcome of that analysis. Yeah, so it's the heading sub-regional approach, and then the second paragraph there.
Which page was that, sorry, Claire?
It's on, it's actually, it's 26 of the summary report or 106 of our agenda. It's just there was a big page 43 at the top. That's what I read of. Sorry. Yeah, yeah. Because I mean, I think that would have been one of the considerations as to whether or not those rates could be harmonised, and what the difference was. Yeah.
My understanding is that there was the detailed business case is multi-sections long. What's presented in the report is a summary that the lead players of the business case put together. The actual detailed business case in its entirety is just in the final draft at the moment. But there was a full section on the economic case where I think it was PwC, don't quote me on that, looked at various scenarios with regard to debt levels, rates, and so forth. So it was more done to justify that it wasn't going to create an overdue economic burden on any of the participants in the case. So it wasn't specifically recommending one economic model over another. It was just making sure that it was basically affordable, irrespective of what scenario was taken forward, is my understanding.
All right. Well, it was good to see that affordability analysis, the way they did that as well. I guess once the detailed business case further down the track, it might be available for us that want to have a drill down into those particular sections or something.
I would certainly believe so, yes.
Yeah, yeah, okay. And then there were just a few typos, so I don't know if you want that detail or not. Yeah. One of the biggest ones was there's a chart on page 88 that's figure 2. It's got the metro areas, the wastewater treatment plant consent compliance overview.
Yeah, we did we had previously identified that error too.
Oh yeah, so so that Ngaruawaki instead of
yeah,
oh, that's good. Yeah, and then in the MOU, on page 129. For 4.2, the role, yeah, the B at the end, it's got cost sharing for that. Yeah. I think you don't even need for that. I think it's just
it's just cost sharing. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Roger. Sorry. You there, Roger?
Sorry, I was on mute. Just going a bit further forward into the cost allocation against all district councils. It's itemized on its table 6, and it looks at both the Cambridge wastewater treatment plant and the Southern wastewater treatment plant. It has a cost for the Southern wastewater treatment plant, which my interpretation, there is some costs into the current term of our current 10-year plan. Now, my understanding is that we actually, for that plant, the Southern Waikato plant, we didn't have an allocation in our 10-year plan, long-term plan. And can you also give me some comparison of the costs that are in that table 6 for the Cambridge wastewater treatment plant that we've got in our long-term plan as well?
Yep, so start off in reverse order. So yes, we've got funding in the LTP for the Cambridge wastewater treatment plant.
Yep.
Yep.
How does it compare?
So it's only in the first line is the 2022 to 31 plan, whereas I think that is that 115 million is our inflated costs. I believe we're circa around 100 million in the money when we set the LTP. So I'm not quite sure what the inflation does, but it's not a large distance away from that 115 in that report.
Yep.
And yes, we've got no funding in our LTP at all for the Southern wastewater treatment plant.
So whatever is in that table is additional to what we'd planned for funding.
Correct.
Because I see on the operating costs, it's also got in 2031, which is in our year. I take it that's 544,000 cost to Waipa DC in year 10 of our 10-year plan, plus an additional 14 million in our for the Southern wastewater treatment plant.
Correct. Yeah. So that was based on the business case of the projected loads and flows by 2031, where again the MOU that goes into more detail around the funding goes into how we work out what those actual costs are going forward from the closeout of the business case and what the cost allocation is between the parties. So the MOU starts that discussion, and so there'll be further discussions once the business case is approved and the MOU is approved for us to then go into further negotiations and discussions with what are the actual flows predicted over the first 10 years of the treatment plant based at the airport, and what portion of the costs sit with Waipa. So those are indicative numbers during the formation of the business case, but they'll be more refined as we go forward.
Yeah. I suppose my concern is it's additional money that we've not planned for in our LTP.
Yeah, certainly one line in the MOU and further funding discussions has been is that Hamilton would fund the required funds and charge us and be our bank, if you like, and charge us interest for that capital money is one option being put forward. But certainly there's a lot of water to pass under the bridge before we get there.
There's a lot of flows.
A lot of flows.
I can see that far out that it's contingent on whatever. So thank you. Thank you, Roger. Are there any more questions? Jim, thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, look, it's been an exhaustive process, and I think at the end of the day, in a global sense, the result is almost, I suppose, supported what you would have thought would have come out of it in terms of Cambridge being a standalone and the need for a southern plant picking up the around the airport industrial and southern parts of Hamilton. In terms of the the work done on the northern plant to a certain extent. Probably Liz and I were probably a little bit silent partners in that because it impacted on Waikato and Hamilton City, but in effect it is all interrelated because the amount of sewage flows going from Hamilton north to the northern wastewater treatment plant is going to influence on how quickly the southern one is necessary around the airport, and there could well be a need for that to come on stream a lot quicker. I suppose at the end of the day, the detail that Martin was talking about is the really important issue in terms of we've got to go through a resource consent process. That's got to be approved. That'll set the standards, whatever that may be, although the target has been the Pukekohe plant, for want of a better description. And just what that actually means, although we've got global figures here, what that actually means to the individual connected consumers. And that's still an area where, and I've asked the question, just how much is the I suppose the annual rate charge for a consumer in a normal residential section, if you want to call it that, and knowing what those increasing costs are going to be, because that's going to have a fairly significant influence on the, I suppose, the public acceptability about what we're talking about. But nobody's got that information at the moment, so I don't know if Martin wants to comment on that. But that's when the rubber hits the road, if you like. Just when people get their rates bill, what is actually there.
Thank you. You're good to go?
All good. Yep.
Thank you. All right, we have a recommendation there, A, B, C.
Graham, sorry, can I have a supplementary?
Yes.
Sorry, I did put my hand up. It's not showing, so.
It's very,
I
very hard to
apologise.
see, Roger. Very,
No,
very
I
hard.
didn't, it's not
Thanks for
there,
yelling.
so.
Go for it.
Just a question which I should have included in my last one, really. Martin, if I recall, there was some question about purchase of land for the Southern Hamilton wastewater treatment plant that in fact Waipa was going to have to pay a portion of. Is that cost included in this, or is this going to come in an additional cost to us?
Yep. So the process of identifying land and purchasing land is continuing. Hamilton are leading that project to identify land and start the purchase process. Yes, the costs are for the land are included in those costs in the business case, and we would be expected to pay a portion of that. It's just we haven't decided what that portion is yet.
Okay. Thank you, Roger.
Thank you.
Okay. So recommendation A to H, please. I'm looking for a mover and a seconder for that. Claire and Bruce. I'll put it. All those in favour say aye. Against, carried. Thank you so much. A lot of work's gone into that. So it's good to get that across the line. Tab 11 is a resolution to exclude the public